But this idea of really knowing yourself as we have, AI, as we have social media, this constant presence in our life that is always suggesting how you look or how you act. And so rather than to fall into kind of mimicry, how do you get to know yourself?
This episode is brought to you by the Arts Council for Monterey County. What makes life feel real? It's expressing yourself, finding your people, and using art to heal, grow, and be heard. The Arts Council for Monterey County, Arts for MC, believes the arts benefit everyone. They bring art into schools, community centers, and public spaces, and support students with scholarships, workshops, and programs like Poetry Out Loud and Youth Poet Laureate. Whether you're an artist or just looking to be inspired, your journey starts here. Learn more at arts4mc.org. That's arts, the number 4, mc.org. And remember, they're also proud sponsors of this podcast. So thank you to the Arts Council for Monterey County.
What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Offline Expression. It is a beautiful day. I am your host, Jeff Hinderscheid, and I'm here with Victoria Jones.
Hello, everyone.
We're back. That changes every time, but we try to make it, I try to keep her on her toes, right, Victoria? Just kind of try to...
I guess. A little bit.
She looks nervous. She's like, what are we talking about here? What are we doing? We're excited to be with you today, and we have a very special guest, Kristan Swan. What a cool name. Kristan, say hello to the people.
Hello. Thank you so much. Hello, Jeff and Victoria. So excited to be here today.
Yes, we are excited to have you. Okay, so the very first thing I want to ask you, obviously, is Swan. Is that your real last name?
It is my real last name in that it is by marriage. So
Okay.
yes, my maiden name is Brown with an E on the end of it, and I have spent my entire life spelling both my first name and my last name. So when Mr. Swan came along, it worked out well.
Put it in the pro pile, right? Put it on the pro list.
Exactly,
The baffling air.
exactly.
Well, I don't know. I feel like we might have talked about this, Victoria, but just in case, not to put you on the spot. When I first see that name, I think of Twilight.
Me too. I said that too.
I do. Because I think of Kristen Stewart, who plays Bella Swan. And so I saw Kristen Swan and my brain just automatically went boink right to Twilight. So that's cool. Has
I
anybody ever told
know,
you
I
that?
know. I have had some people that have brought that up. It's funny because I haven't read the Twilight books, and then I have 3 children, and my youngest, I am pretty sure read them, but I feel like my kids' age were just a little bit out of step with kind of the big moment of Twilight, right? So, I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse that I got to kind of sidestep that one, but, who knows?
I mean, I guess it's so funny when those pop culture moments hit and like you're on one side or the other somehow. Either it just never lands and you don't watch it or read it or whatever. And then once it goes
Right.
away, it's like, oh, I missed that train. So I'm just whatever. But
Oh, I
we
know.
we recently, I think in the last year, maybe we went back and watched those. Yeah.
Yeah, I have never read any of the books, but we watched the movies together.
Yeah. I feel like it's like there's this coming of age moment when it's like, okay, we're not watching just cartoons anymore. What are
Right.
some, you know, fun action movies or series that we can kind of dive into? And that was one that we got through. And I hadn't seen it since it came out when my older kids were younger. I did not miss that train or get to sidestep it. I was right in the middle of walking through the muddy
Right.
puddle of it all.
Oh,
Um,
yes, in the
but
misty forests and all that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, I gotta tell you, I went through a pretty interesting reading phase, where I was just reading anything that had a series that was pop culture. I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna test this out from the ground up." So I did read all those books. I
Mhm.
actually really enjoyed them. I thought they were great. I love the story about I don't know if you know this. I know we're going on a way deep tangent here, but the very first movie, a couple big production, companies turned it down. They didn't like the script. They're like, "This is not good."
Mm.
So they had
Okay.
this little tiny film company decide, "We'll take it on." So they had this tiny budget, a very small company. So the first movie was very, very, low budget, and you can tell.
Mhm.
And then it explodes, right? So this
Right,
company just
right.
launches off the map, becomes super famous, gets tons of, money to produce the next one. So as it goes on, you could just see them getting better and better and better. And by better, I mean, like, the quality of, like, the cinematography and the all that
Right,
stuff. So
right.
but it's interesting when we watched the first one, I was like, "Oh, yeah, this looks really fake." Had to rely on
Oh
some
my
tricks.
gosh.
That was
Now you've piqued my curiosity. So I may, I may have to realign my plans for the weekend
Well,
here.
there you go, and I don't need to just launch into this thing on your name. It's a beautiful name, it rolls right off the tongue, and so that was the first thing I thought, and, well, sometimes I just say the things that I should just maybe keep in my head, so here we are.
That's okay, that's okay. What kind of show? How fun would it be if we kept all those things inside, right? I mean, I always joke that
Right.
I have this thought bubble over my head and, it's depending on kind of my self-awareness in the moment, right? Sometimes the thought bubble comes out of my mouth and, for better or worse.
Right. Yeah. I think we all have that bubble, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Victoria's very good. See that? I'm learning
That
from
is
her. This
very
is
g
how
I
you that's how
know.
you keep the thing in the bubble. We don't actually have to
Yeah.
fit everything with the weird
Mhm.
wool, Jeff. Okay. I'm learning.
Right.
Thank you, Victoria. I appreciate that on a Monday. Well, welcome, Kristen. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you.
So here at Offline Expression, we talk about a lot of the stuff that it looks like you do. Okay. Um, our focus is, we talk a lot about social media and the impact of this shift that's happening with our youth and Gen Z and how technology is a beautiful, wonderful thing, but like the ocean, don't turn your back on it because it's dangerous sometimes, right? So
Right.
you um, do a lot of work with a lot of people that obviously have this in their lives. So what I'd love to do is just have you kind of introduce yourself to your listeners and our listeners and tell everybody what you do and kind of a summary of how that goes.
Yeah, well, it's not it has not been a linear journey. When I look back at all the things, I mean, on the one hand, I could say that I'm a serial entrepreneur, right? I've had
Mm.
different businesses. I've been a business coach. I've also been a landscape designer. I have worked on interior spaces. I have I've worked in the restaurant industry. I've worked in small independent retail, and I've also worked for a union. I have taught willow furniture making classes, and worked for bakeries and things like. I mean, just you name it, and I feel like I've done something or something adjacent, probably to it. I
Okay.
never have done a big corporate job, right? And so that isn't something I've done. And I think in part, one of the things, if I look at the through line of my past professions, is I never was very motivated by the idea of a title within an organization. And I wasn't in it in everything. Over time, what came to me is the people that I worked with, that was the absolute most important thing to me. Whether I was working for someone else or whether I had my own business and I was, basically working with clients. And and that is my true north, so to speak, right? And so it's kind of no surprise. I I'd been doing business coaching all up through the pandemic and even beyond. And really, it was a time where, there wasn't much else to do. So I was,
Right.
doing as much as I could with my clients. Thank goodness they all survived, if not kind of did even better than ever in certain ways because we were able to really focus on things and make adjustments in real time.
Mhm.
And I just found myself so burned out. I was like, I did it to myself, right? And I so I thought, well, I've always felt like I had an undergrad degree in fine art and geography, right? I had kind of the classic liberal arts education. And I felt like I I wanted I wanna do something I wanna get some extra letters after my name. So I went and did a master's of education, program, and it was primarily focused on, policy and leadership. So, basically, it kind of fit in to stuff that I had been doing, but I was in this cohort of people that were doing really different things from me. So, super interesting. I was definitely the oldest person in my cohort. I was the only person from my part of the country. It was kind of a hybrid situation. So really humbling in certain ways, right? Just having to bring that beginner's mind, be willing to be really transparent about all the stuff I didn't know
Mhm.
and which I love, and I always welcome that. It may not be super comfortable in the moment, but I it's kind of like exercise, right? I know it's going to be good for
Right.
me.
Growth
And
mindset.
oh, absolutely. I Carol Dweck, author of Growth Mindset, is my hero. I mean, I remember the first time that book landed in my lap, and I was like, "This is genius." And so, yes, always challenging myself. And I thought, well, maybe I have such deep respect for teachers. I didn't necessarily see myself as becoming a teacher, but I thought, well, I can kind of maybe find my way into academia. And it was interesting because at the end of this master's program, what I realized is I kind of was going back to one of my original loves, which is small group leadership. And so, what I do primarily now, it also aligns so much with what I believe we need, which is real in-person conversations, right? And
Mhm.
and 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 even these conversations that you and I are doing, the 3 of us here, although we may not be sitting in the same room, we are we've basically made an agreement to sit together for this time together and um be open and be vulnerable with each other
Yeah.
and share what is kind of in our hearts, minds, however you want to say it. So I've really been leaning into getting groups of people together and we talk. I have a one workshop that's discovering your spiritual autobiography, and that is a non-denominational kind of examination of kind of that, which is, I guess, the only premise is maybe that you believe in something that's bigger than yourself. And for some people, that's nature. For some
Okay.
people, that is a god or a deity of sorts. So it's kind of like I said, it's very open-ended, but does we get some great conversations going in
Like
that.
that. Yeah. I mean, the fear
Yeah,
existential stuff is really huge. Why are we
yeah,
here? What happens next is a common and very normal place to go mentally. So people find something to believe in, right? Something bigger than you. And maybe not always, but usually there's something, whether it's, a drive, something that you feel that you're passionate about, that you are here to do. There's all kinds of different ways that that sparks a great conversation. So that's cool. I think that's really cool.
yeah, yeah, and also, I mean, in relation to that and part of our earlier conversations was, around AI. And
Mm.
so, I here we are. I'm really deep in these in-person conversations, right? And having people write with pens and paper on these workbooks that I create. And then we have this, kind of talk about existential questions, right? We have this looming specter, and not even, I mean, it's more than just kind of out there. It's part of our lives. This whole idea of AI, and what does that mean for us, especially as at any age, right?
All right.
And in particular for younger people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hot button topic right now for sure. Um, well, just to go back for a second,
Yeah.
first of all, I I think it's magnificent that you just kind of floated. You found things that you were passionate about, whether it was temporary or permanent, and then so there's such an eclectic, um, you know, a vast majority of different professions on the spectrum throughout what you were describing. Clearly, it has to be the people, right? Like,
Yeah.
you eventually were like, "It's the people that I work with." Otherwise, how does that even come to pass, right? It's not like we sit in some little silo and go, "Today, I will be an interior designer," and then you know what I mean? And then you do that. Like,
Right.
things happen, conversations take place, these moments, these little artistic things, I think I could do that. That looks fun. Oh, that's beautiful. And you start to build this focus on something for a while, and then you
Yeah.
get to a place where you're like, "Well, now I'm meeting new people." The networking is what kind of I know in my experience, 'cause I have a very similar path, the networking is what kinda leads you to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and before you know it, it's, 10 years later, and you're like, "Oh, I've done these 8 different cool things. That's kinda neat, right?" So that's
Oh,
good that you kinda
exactly.
followed that, I think. That's really cool.
Well, I love your take on my journey as kind of floating from things to things, but I want to be very open and saying, boy, a lot of times it just felt like my knees were constantly scraped, right? I mean, I
Mhm.
had road rash galore of just feeling like,
More like
oh,
falling
I
then.
oh, falling. And I know that so much of, even within, we were referencing Carol Dweck's work, the growth mindset, and kind of the idea of embracing that which we don't do well, right? Or embracing failure. And I, I want to be very careful not to romanticize failure, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I think that it is clearly, if I go back and I mean, I can go back to, last week, or I can go back 10 years or whatever, those moments of really deep and impactful learning, those really kind of those points of transformation and transition, many times were inspired by a failure of sorts, right?
Right.
And and I guess what I want everyone to know is that in that moment, oh, I would have done anything not to have fallen down and scraped my
Not
knees,
be in
right?
that moment.
Oh, it it doesn't feel good. I mean, I've had moments where I've just been so embarrassed or ashamed. I've just wanted to hide. Don't or I wanna just run away. Um, and so I think that I do want to be I and I mean, part of the wonderful thing in the discovering your spiritual autobiography, which is kind of this journey of prompts that we're kind of drawing from our past and looking at our different stories. I mean, what you realize, right, is upon reflection, I'm still here, right? I did it. I made it through.
Mhm.
So I think that there's so much hope. Um and yeah, and I want to be really, gosh, in the moment, it doesn't feel good
No.
to
No.
fail.
You said it really well. Not to romanticize failure. I think that is a brilliant like little snippet of that because yes, standing here today, you can say, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And when it's listed like that, it is easy to be like, whoa, that's amazing, right? Like you've done all this cool stuff. I want to do a bunch of cool stuff. So it is important to go, well, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of stuff
It
between the stuff.
Yeah, a lot of stuff between the stuff, and I think that there is, it's interesting because I think so much of, uh, failure, so to speak, is related to either an expectation around an outcome that we have or that we think other people have.
Hmm.
Um, and so I mean, I think there's a couple, and I also don't want to, again, in the spirit of not romanticizing failure, I don't want to come up with euphemisms for, oh, everything's a learning experience or everything. And it's true. It is. Okay. It is. And we got to call it what it is. Right. I mean, it just failure sucks. It just doesn't feel good.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think of one of my really early on when I first graduated from college, I was going to join a friend who was in the restaurant business, and we had talked about this. We really kind of had this big dream, and I pretty much was joining her in her hometown. And I had been there before and spent time and really enjoyed it. Beautiful, lovely place. And I get there and I start managing. I mean, I'm what, 21 or whatever, and I start managing the kitchen. And that means I've got multiple employees. We serve lunch and dinner. I've also am responsible for, with assistance from her, figuring out the specials, which means that you're then ordering the food and, and you're trying to manage waste and costs and all this stuff, right? And I am so earnest. I'm like, this is my reason for living. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I am just, and I mean, number one, I had never managed people. I mean, I had been in school and I had worked at different jobs, but I mean, I was the one who was managed, and I wasn't really paying attention to what my manager was doing. Either I thought they were cool because they'd let me off early, or I thought they were kind of strict because did I wash my hands for 20, 30 seconds or whatever. I mean, all the stuff that that legitimately they need to be doing. I mean, I'm not questioning that.
They were like
But
a
here
player on some pedestal that wasn't familiar. It was just a
Yeah,
role
it
that
just
somebody else played.
exactly. So then it's me doing this, and it's so funny because here I am in this resort town. So essentially all of my employees are there because they just want enough money to do the thing that they can do in this place, right? To
Mhm.
do the mountain biking, to do the hiking, to do the whatever. And I'm like, "Oh, but this is really important, I mean, getting that plate out just so is really important." And this wasn't even fine dining, right? And so, I mean,
Wasn't even fine dining.
I'm like, "Oh god, the placement of this and, wiping," and
Presentation matters.
it does matter. It does. And all these
Good for
things
you.
matter. And I just was so not relating to the people that I was working with in a
Mhm.
way that made sense, right? And I was so overwhelmed, and I thought that I think one of the things is I thought that I was supposed to already know everything.
Mm.
And I think that that's such a big, I mean, especially for my kids who are young adults, I'm such one of the pieces of advice, as a parent, I'm always trying to save them from my own mistakes, right, or failures. It's like,
That would be nice, right?
and and yeah, and so I was too afraid to ask questions, and ultimately I I left, and I was exhausted, I was miserable, I didn't really wanna live in this place, which I hadn't really realized, and the biggest part of that failure, so to speak, is I really felt like I had let my friend down.
Yeah. Failure hurts, and like those moments, they impact us in different ways. And I think that one of the things that you said that really kind of resonates is, you think that you're supposed to know everything already. And that
Mhm.
right there, that piece is one of the things that I find the hardest for young people
Yes.
right now. Because, and I mean, Victoria, you would know better than I, but there, it seems like there's this pressure. So what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are
Mhm.
you gonna do? You're
Mhm.
gonna graduate in a couple of years. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And now with all the information that is at their disposal, now it seems like that expectation even got worse, even though that
Mhm.
actually doesn't help. When you have 7,000 options versus 5, it is way harder to make a decision. So, like, Victoria, are you seeing that? Like,
Mhm.
do you feel that pressure, or do you know people that do?
Definitely. There's definitely a lot of pressure in being a teen in general, but with what you're gonna do with the future, it's just too much. Sometimes it's just too much to think about.
Well, that's fair. That is
Oh my
totally fair.
gosh, and that is, I mean, that's a real thing, right? The paradox of choice, right?
Mhm.
It's actually um to have kind of the world, and with all of these options available to you, doesn't make it easier, it makes it worse. And I think, I love, I'm blanking on his last name, but the author who wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. Um,
Oh, man, I can't remember.
and I wanna say it's Mark, and I can't think, but I know. But he talks so well about that this concept of the paradox of choice, and really that there is something so much more rewarding and meaningful that comes from commitment, right? And picking the thing, whatever the thing is, right? And I think especially for younger people, I am when I'm either kind of I make myself available on the alumni site, and I also in my just day to day, when I am interacting with younger people, and I just had someone last week who reached out to me and said, "Gosh, I'm trying to, I've been in this role for a little bit, and now I'm wondering, do I go back to school? Do I what I da da da?" And it really,
Mm,
my advice was a couple of things was, okay, you've got some time because you currently have a position that you enjoy, right? So give yourself, and I think that was another thing when I was younger. I felt like I was in this incredible rush, and I don't know, like, I
yeah.
don't know where that was coming from, but it was like this just
Can't
push that
wait to
I
be
had
an
to.
adult. Can't wait.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do everything.
it was so odd. So I was kind of, to this person I suggested, what about really shoring up your personal board of directors, right?
Mhm.
So taking some time to reach out and essentially to take off of what you were saying, right? That network of people,
Mhm.
right, that you grow and learn from, right? And they learn from you. I mean, I my one of my favorite kind of realizations in giving a workshop in West Africa was everyone has something to teach and everyone has something to learn, right?
Mhm.
And that's if you are, honestly, I believe that's, I feel like having children when they were just first infants, I mean, they were teaching me all the time,
Oh, yeah,
right?
we just had a guest where we were talking about this exact same thing. Parents who rule with an iron fist, who think that I'm in charge and you're the child. If you're not learning stuff, or at least
Yeah,
admitting that you're learning stuff, because you are whether you
yeah,
like it or not, you learn a lot when you have a child, but if you're not at least admitting the fact that, "Oh, hey, I'm not perfect at this and there's stuff I need to learn," then you're doing yourself a disservice, but that's that growth mindset, lifelong learner kinda mindset, but I think
Yeah.
that's the key right there, that final sentence of everybody has something to learn, everybody has something to teach, that's really important.
Yeah, it does, and I think that so this idea of I mean, I remember my mom growing up was like, "Oh, you can be whatever you wanna be," and that was and it was very well intentioned, and it's a very sweet sentiment, and it did nothing for me. I mean, if anything, it probably gave me more anxiety
Oh my
because
god, that's
it was like, "Well, okay, great, but how do I do anything that I wanna
right.
do?" Like, and that's where I feel like I either if I can make myself available to other people or just kinda collectively, if we can have these questions and answer sessions, which is like, "Okay, so how do you go about doing whatever it is, the thing that you wanna do?" And one of the things that I really am putting forth, especially to younger people, is right now, you don't have to find the perfect thing straight out of the gate, right? So kind of consider yourself a collector of experiences, right?
Yeah.
Allow yourself to do different things. And and what I would say is, I mean, clearly I allowed myself to do different things. However, in that kind of rushing mindset, I didn't do a lot of reflection. And so the piece that I would add on to it is while you are collecting these experiences, check in with yourself once in a while.
Decide if
Like,
you like it or not. Like,
yeah,
is it something you enjoy? Is it something you're interested in learning more about? Are you good at it? Like aptitude, right? There's like a
yeah,
measurement system that you have to really be kind of self-evaluative on, right? Like
right.
Victoria, like you were saying, sometimes it's just too much to even think about. But at the same time, um, I think that being given the opportunity to try something and see if you like it, I think that's
Mhm.
probably important, no?
Yeah, and I think it's easier if you're just doing something that you can say, "I like this, I don't like this, I'm good at this, I'm not good at this." When you're looking at everything in the world, you're like, "I don't even know if I'd be good at that or if I like it. I don't know what I wanna do."
Totally. How do I even do that? It looks cool, but I don't know, right? Where do you start?
Mhm.
That's a good point.
Well, and that's where I love this idea of that personal board of directors, right? And I think that you are never too young or even too old, right? To be really thinking about reaching out to people and saying, "Gosh, I know that you worked with kids and you did these a few things. Tell me what that was like. Tell me, I kind of I think I like kids, but maybe maybe I wanna do this." So,
Right.
I mean, so you can be asking questions, and obviously, all of us, how we experience things is unique to our individual makeup,
Mhm.
but at least it starts chipping away at that big, like, overwhelming, like, "Oh my god, what do I do?" Because there's so many things.
Right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that a personal board of directors is a really good analogy for something that people already can can understand, right? Like if you're the CEO of your life and you have a board of directors, who's the president? Like who's your number one confidant that you go to
Yeah.
that helps you make final decisions? And then who kind of can you bounce things off of? Who's the member at large in this group? If you have do you have and so if you start
Exactly.
assigning officers in your mind in this sense of like this is my team and we do good things together, which is why we all work together. That's a really interesting way to look at some stuff. So I really like that. And it's a fun
Well,
look to teach. There's a
oh
lot of
gosh,
board of directors out
it's
there.
I know, right? And also I will say, I mean, your family members can be on your board of directors. Your best friend can be on your board of directors. The one thing I would say is in those moments when you are making kind of you're trying to do some specific kind of strategic thinking, you may just want to say, okay, at this moment, I really, I need you to be, I need you to be brutally honest, knowing what you know about me. I know you love me. You're not going to hurt my feelings. This
Hmm.
is kind of what I'm thinking. And, and sometimes, and then there's also those times, and I think it's again kind of getting back to those expectations, right? And how much that is part of our overall communication, right? There also can be those times where you're like, I just need a cheerleader.
Right.
I
Just tell
just
me that I'm gonna
wanna.
be okay.
Yeah, exactly. Just let me vent for, 3 minutes, and I promise, and then just tell me I'm gonna be okay, and then, we can talk about how to, the next thing, later. But
Right.
so
That's a good
just
point.
giving yourself permission to kinda name what you need in that
But
relationship
you have to
too.
be vulnerable at the same time, right? Like
Yeah.
a couple minutes ago, I want you to know, I said, "Oh man, that's funny," and I didn't mean like funny, like I'm laughing at your situation. I'm funny because I relate to it so much. I had really sweet parents that were telling me, "You can do anything," and all that stuff, and that was great. And then I'm working on a project right now where I have this subtitle, "Gifted and talented and riddled with anxiety," right? And like, those, I, were you a gay kid?
What's up, all you expressionists out there? Do you need reliable IT support and more for your business? SPJR Computer Consulting delivers comprehensive solutions tailored to small and medium-sized businesses. From seamless technical support to professional website design and effective online advertising, we keep your budget in mind. Don't miss out. Visit spjrsolutions.com today. That's spjrsolutions.com. Your business deserves the best.
You remember GATE,
Yes,
gifted and
yes,
talented
yes,
education,
yes,
right? And like
yes.
back in the 80s and 90s, that was like the thing, right? And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
man, this is how we're going to let the cream rise to the top, right? We're gonna give these kids that are showing this specific
Oh my
aptitude for
gosh.
things all this extra stuff, and
I just
everybody who can't
remember
get it.
being made fun of for
Oh
going
yeah,
to when they would
oh
pull us
yeah,
out of
nerd,
the
right?
regular class. It was just like you
Yeah.
kind of were like, please don't.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
and that makes me think of the whole kind of, one of the things we kind of brought up AI, and I was, part of the recent conversations that I've been having with people who are, saying that it's here. This is how you can be managing it just in terms of kind of how do you use it, whether it's in the workplace or school or whatnot, is, just maintain your authentic voice. Maintain your authentic voice, right? And what does authentic mean? I was joking that I just looked it up because I feel like it's one of those wallpaper words, right?
Yeah,
And I don't even know. I mean,
I agree.
Victoria, tell me, does the word, I mean, what do you think of when you hear authentic? I
I
Does
don't
it
know.
even resonate for you?
I just think authentic is like genuinely yourself, or like that's that would be my personal definition.
Which I love, and that I hope is what most people think of. And as I was saying, this idea of wallpaper words, and that's my way of saying these words that are just being used so often in a way that there's kind of a commonly accepted definition for them. But these
I
are
use
those
that
words.
wallpaper word. That is a great definite. Like that's a good title for it. I'm gonna steal that.
Oh,
'Cause I don't
it's
I
there.
never I always have to explain my way through that. I'm like, um, I tell psych students, I'm like, "People throw around the word crazy, or they say psycho all the time. They're
Yeah,
psycho, they're being psycho. You
yeah,
need to not do that because psycho is short for psychotic when you know what I mean? You can go down the list
yes.
of, like, these have become, just like you said, these socially acceptable words that have this other meaning that makes it lose its authenticity, right? It's not that's
Right.
not really what that means, and so that common vernacular gets tough, and so, ironically, authentic can be thrown around like that sometimes, right?
Well, I think again, and also success, and another one is like abundance, and these, kind of, and
Mindfulness.
Oh, mindfulness. Oh, that good one. Yes. And so it is, I think for every wallpaper word, it's worth sitting down and getting clear about. Oftentimes I even have this as an exercise in my workshops. It's like look up the word in the academic, whether it's a dictionary or whatever. And and then also think about what does that word really mean for you? Like what's your relationship to that word? And Victoria, I love your definition of it. And that that resonate. I mean, I think I love it because that's kind of what I'm talking about when I think about authentic. And I wish I had a better word for authentic because it has become this wallpaper word. But this idea of really knowing yourself, and I think it's so important, and I think it's so vital, especially for younger people and younger generations as we have, AI, as we have social media that is this constant presence in our life that is always suggesting kind of the way to do something, right? Whether it's how you look or how you act or it's and so rather than to fall into kind of mimicry, right? Just mimic being a mimic for this these things that are being put forth as the way, how do you get to know yourself, right? And the conundrum here, and the reason why I'm gonna bring this all back, my friends, they're like, "You are so like, you're always talking in tangents." I'm like, "No, no, no, they really if you stick with me, they'll come back." And so, I'm coming back to that idea of gait and being, being kind of awarded
Mhm.
this special treatment and access to kind of more challenging and thought-provoking work, and it's right at a time where it's like, "Oh god, I don't wanna stand out. I don't wanna be different. I don't wanna be just
Yeah,
can I
there's a
just can I
social
just blend in?"
there's a social component to that during that developmental time that, it's like your parent trying to give you a hug. That is a beautiful, wonderful piece of affection from somebody who you care a lot about, and you do not want it because you're standing in front of your school and everyone
Oh,
sees it. It's
I
like
know.
there's times when even the greatest of intention and a thing that is very good, maybe or nice, is rejected because of social developmental time. So that is a good example of that. And, Victoria said genuine in her definition of authentic, and
Yeah.
I think that's really important because they're often lumped together, but they
Mhm.
are not the same. Authentic can be there's a lot of things that objects can be authentic, right? You
Right.
can authenticate
Right.
something that is at a museum or, a baseball
Exactly.
card. Is it really the rookie card? Is it good enough? And so like authentic can be for almost anything. So when you're being your authentic self, the word genuine being in there, I think is super important because we all know people who act one way in front of you and then act another way in front of you, depending on who else is there and what's going on with their little circles of need, if you will.
Right.
And so if you can always check in and be like, am I being genuinely myself with this situation? Then I think that's a really great start. Good for you.
Oh, I think that's great, and I think especially this idea of I like that you, Jeff, that you were bringing up the idea that objects, right, can be authenticated, and so that is my concern that the word authentic, as we think about it as an attribute that, we want for ourselves, that there is something that is not genuine in that, right? That it's aspirational or that we're meant to show up a certain way, right? For certain audiences. So yeah, genuine, definitely.
The social
Victoria,
component.
yeah,
Yeah, I know, right? Why you
I
keep it
know.
around. You're hilarious.
Exactly, right?
Poor thing. She's like, now I'm feeling like dead of
Don't
it.
do this to me.
Get away. But okay, let's go back to the what we were talking about at the beginning real quick, Victoria, because you are in that developmental stage, right? And you have all these things and the pressures and stuff like that. Is there any point when, like, when you do end up thinking about that stuff that you go like, I know exactly what I'm gonna do, and I know exactly how I wanna do it, and this is kind of a plan, or, some days are better than others, or do you have, like, a list? Like, I wanna check these things out.
Sometimes I'm a bit far off to be thinking about it. I'm in my freshman summer, or I'm gonna incoming sophomore, so it's not the first thing on my mind, and so it's always a little hazy when I'm thinking about it, and it's there's just a couple different avenues to explore, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, do you find that sometimes we are watching, like, friends that are, like, getting close to that and seeing kinda what they're doing, and, is there ever any sort of
I don't have a
swap
lot
errands?
I don't have a lot of friends that are close to that or that are doing anything worthwhile for that.
Well, there you go. It's like, I know you know some people that have graduated this year for sure because you were in your freshman year, so it's interesting to watch and see how that stuff plays out. But, you know, what we've talked about before, Kristen, is the fact that, with this, you know, Jonathan Haidt talked about this with this modern generation that is facing the social media and the screens from a very young age and all the change that has come with that world. Kids are like, they're not entering adulthood as quickly. So, like, a lot of people get their driver's license way later. A lot of people stay and live at home a lot longer. A lot of people just aren't there's like this, eh, forgive the term, but failure to launch, if you will, you know what I mean? And it's the
Mhm.
word failure maybe isn't the right word here, but it's interesting to see a social trend across an entire generation that is picking up speed, right? So, one of the things he also talked about is take a year to do exactly what you said, that experience collector, right? Meet people, try jobs, go places, take a class, travel. Like, that life experience that comes from doing is what is really absent in the world of screens for young people right now. So getting the opportunity to do exactly what we're doing now, face to face conversation, real social interaction, that social learning is beneficial on every single level of life and will kind of motivate in a lot of ways once you check in with that personal board of directors and you find out, okay, this might be fun. This could be interesting. And if you don't have a passion like that, you're like, I must do that, then that, sure, go for it. If that's how you feel about something, by all means. But if you're not sure, that's okay. And you can always change your mind. Get 3 years into it,
Oh
and you go,
gosh,
not like
yes.
this anymore." You're not letting anyone down, you're not letting yourself down, you're not, and even if you are, whatever, like, if you're miserable, you can change your mind, try something new.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just really, underline both the idea of asking questions, right? That you are not meant to know everything and that you can change your mind, right? Because I think that especially in the way that I grew up, there was a bit of a a stigma really to if you couldn't do something fast or if you changed your mind, somehow you were like deficient, right?
Somehow you were quitting.
You were quitting or you were I mean, you were just you kinda were you were flaky or it was just I mean, there was so much judgment attached to that and it which is ridiculous. And I mean, especially in during my stint as a business coach, I mean, I thankfully was able to really, talk to people in a way that was like, okay, you make decisions, we make choices with the information we have in the moment. And then you do something and you get more information. And that information may confirm your path or it may give you enough information where you're like, "Whew, this is so not for me." Or it just may mean, is there a course correction or a pivot here, right? I mean, the idea that somehow changing your mind is kind of a liability is just, I mean, is so not really the human experience.
Yeah, and you know what? Luckily, or fortunately, we are seeing a shift in that, thankfully.
Yes.
When I was a kid, um, I think the consensus was that adults went into the workforce, maybe a trade or whatever, and maybe shifted careers a total of 2 to 3 times max.
Right.
And that's if things
Right.
went wrong, like a layoff came out somehow and you had to, right? Whereas
Yes.
now it's like 11 to 13 career shifts in
Yeah.
couples' lives. And so that's one of the great benefits to the world of technology is you can find out a lot now about other things that you might be interested in at the in the palm of your hand, which is beautiful. YouTube is one of those things where you can get stuck in a rabbit hole of meaningless content, and I do not advise that. However,
Right.
you can also go and look up, how do I change this tail light in my 2022 truck?
Oh, I
You
know.
can go and say, I want to learn guitar or piano or Spanish or whatever. And like, there's lots and lots of amazing ways to learn. And then if you get good at something, now you can go down a rabbit hole that's about that topic and learn a lot about it. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy to just go, well, let me go search YouTube and see if anything jumps out at me. That's not what I mean. But it is nice to see that people are becoming a little bit more um, okay with the fact that there's a bunch of jobs out there, and now we have this, right? Remote work. So, like, we
Yeah.
learned in COVID that during the COVID time, we learned that, oh, actually, Department of Social Services, it turns out I can do my job for 40 hours a week from not sitting in that box that you made for me, right? We all agreed. We saw that. You expected it. It happened. So now to bring everybody back in, people are like, can't recage that animal, so it's easier to go, "What else is out here that I might like better?" And so I love that. I'm all about trying to figure it out. But I think going back to what you said with authenticity and, um, knowing that there is some piece that isn't genuine when you're in a social environment, social psychology is my favorite topic in the world of psychology because even the best of us, smart, educated, we know, we coach other people, we teach other people, we work with lots and lots of different people, and we know what to do and how to say it and all that. Even us, you get stuck in a social situation, and all of a sudden, normal human tendency takes over, and all of a sudden we're saying little jokes, right? Little self-deprecating jokes.
Oh my
We're
god,
we're
yes.
we're diving into the yeah, that sounds good when you really don't want to do that, and like we will succumb to the social group, and that is so interesting. So when you get to a moment where you're gonna change your mind, you get to a moment where you're like, I don't like doing this anymore, and I don't want to, or I'm not feeling it, or maybe you just go, you know what, I'm not really feeling that I'm good at it, and I don't like doing things that I don't feel like I'm good at. Then here's where the authenticity comes in. You have to go, that's okay. I'm not a failure. I'm not quitting. I'm not deficient, like you mentioned. I'm gonna do one of the bazillion other things out there because it'll make me happier and I like that better. And that's a hard thing.
It is a hard thing, and I'm gonna push back just a little bit on because I the word happy is I have a
Another
little
wallpaper
bit
word.
I'd almost worse than a wallpaper word, right? I
Mhm.
think that it is I I really, I for myself and what I recommend to others is you are really looking for a life of meaning and purpose. Because happiness, in my personal definition, is much more of it. There's something ephemeral about it, right? Meaning that it's fleeting and it's very in the moment where kind of that bigger piece around meaning and purpose. And so in my own life, recognizing that being with people that I respected and that were engaging and smarter than me in many cases, those were the kinds of people that I wanted to work with, right? And that was meaningful to me. And it didn't mean that it didn't wipe out the possibility for difficult conversations or for conflict even, right? So to be careful when you are kind of feeling like, "Oh gosh, I wanna change my mind because I don't like this thing." I think that it's really I think unpacking a little bit around what you don't like, can be can be useful information, right? So
That's a good that you're
Mhm.
mhm.
I I love when you say to build a life of purposefulness and, like, meaningfulness because happiness is just such, like, a fleeting emotion, like, you can have the best life ever, but you'll never always be happy, but if you've built a life where when you're not happy, when you're down, you can see, like, the light at the end of the tunnel, and you can see, like, "But I do have all of this," and I think that's really important. I
That's a
I
good
really like
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's almost
thank you.
like what you were mentioning about happy is it's almost like dopamine. It's a hit.
Mhm.
Boom,
Yeah.
boom, you know? So I guess, to maybe go back to what I was saying, then I think we are aligned because what I mean more is if you have the meaning, you have purposefulness, just like you mentioned the story, you have a more solid foundation. And when you have that solid foundation, um, even when that dopamine isn't hitting all the time and it's hard or you have conflict or stuff that you have to work through that isn't so fun, there's a challenge there that you rise to with a different energy because you care in a certain way. Like there's a motivating factor to that meaning and that purpose. So yeah, I think I agree with that. Also, when you're working with people that and you can tell, like, I'm curious about this. Okay, I know that we're blah blah blah, blah, we're running out low on time, but I want to ask you this really important thing. Okay, when you're working with other people on a team, or in all your experience in different avenues of the workforce, when you're working with other people and you can tell that they themselves are going through something that maybe they're, for lack of better terms, they're miserable, they hate it, they're burnt out, they're these things, right? Um, and uh, you're on the personal board of directors for one of them. What kind of encouragement, options, words, advice, coaching, what kind of things do you say when people are feeling that? Because earlier you gave an example of someone's like, "Oh, I'm not sure I want to do this, but maybe this over here." That's more of a something's happening. There's a shift maybe going on. But when there's a crisis, like I'm not doing well here, and like what kind of direction can we give people to start?
I think, well, I love this question, and it definitely is, it's so, oh, it I think for starters, you make yourself fully available to that person, right? And even if it's on a phone call, someone can tell if you're you're typing at your computer or if you're scrolling. So give your complete attention to that person and whether you're sitting across from each other or on another, platform. Um and and just say, "This is what I'm noticing," right? I'm noticing I you know, I'm noticing y you're not you didn't bounce in like you normally do each day, right? That you usually are the person if this is the person that always comes in and, brings, like, donuts or something, and they're it's like, "Gosh, I'm just are you let's talk to me. How are you feeling?" And so, just I think so often giving space to that person to share and letting them know that that you will give to them. I mean, which is truly, time is kind of the biggest gift that we have, right?
Mm.
And so being fully present And I will say, again, kind of going back to earlier themes that we talked about in terms of expectations, right? And that being maybe something that weighs so heavily on us is I feel like in so many of these conversations where I've said to someone, talk to me about what's going on, they have shared with me essentially the conversation that's going on in their head, right? And the negative self-talk, right, is just oh, it just breaks my heart to hear what people tell themselves. And and so for starters, if that is kind of where we end up going, um a lot of times I'll just kind of say, gosh, if you were your own friend right now, become a witness or a non-judgmental observer. What would you say to yourself, right? And I guarantee you, I mean, I think this, oftentimes it's not appropriate to say it in the moment, but it's like you would not be saying these things to a friend. All of this stuff that we say to ourselves.
Yep.
So I think that there's just giving space and just saying, gosh, and I think a way to kind of break open that conversation is to really note something that you have seen in that person, right?
Mm,
Note, and so that they know that you do see them
right.
and say, gosh, that's kind of missing right now. I want to check in and see if you're doing okay.
Mhm. That goes for any age group, I think. It's easy to dissect things by social group or developmental age or whatever and say, okay, well, when I'm talking with a child, I'll say this. When I'm talking to a teenager, I'll say that. But I think universally, what you just said is really important. The negative self-talk starts at a young age. It comes from a place of human instinct in a lot of ways. There's self-preservation in that and always having
Right.
your head on a swivel and, quickly sizing things up to speak. Am I okay? Right? Like the amygdala wants to know, let's let's assume the worst about that, so I'm prepared for anything. But that's a dangerous game and it's a slippery slope, especially in modern times. So, but it's not something you can just take away. You have to rewire it in a sense and start battling that with the positive stuff, and like that's where affirmations and stuff like that come in. So I think you bring up a good point, especially for those battling with some serious stuff in like the social media world. Once you're already
Mhm.
stuck in it, just like any addiction, it's really, really hard to break those types of habits. And so what that's doing is just feeding all that negative stuff. It's just constantly feeding it, feeding it, feeding it. And so pointing it out, naming it, right? Like if you aren't your own best friend, you can't give friendship. You certainly don't feel deserving of good friendship. And so what
Right.
happens is you start subconsciously making this push, push, push sabotage situation to where you literally break good friendships that would normally be good for you. And you cut them off because you can't see the forest through the trees. So pointing out, if you had a friend here and you were your friend, you would not talk that way to that person. And if you would, now we have something even deeper to unpack because now we got a real road to walk, don't we?
Yeah. So just really, working to really see each other, right? Because
Right.
it's like there is such a as much as we've been talking about the importance of knowing who you are as an individual, right? You're bringing forth that which is genuine to you and the beauty of us all being these unique individuals. We also have this deep need for belonging and
Right.
and and in that belonging is being seen.
That's that social piece that always comes back to root. You can push
I
and push and
know.
push and push and push, but if you push so hard that you isolate yourself, there's a myriad of hardship that comes with that, that is, um, not possible to face alone. It just isn't, and
Yeah.
people are really struggling with that these days, and, you know Victoria's heard this a billion times, but like I hate the term social media. Like I personally think it's anti-social media because it
Yeah.
isolates you, so you can just stare at a screen and you're not really communicating. So, um, and that's easy to go into right now when the entire globe is saying, "Do this, right? Buy this. It's
Yeah.
fine. You're gonna be fine." Okay. So as we wrap up, a couple things. First of
Yeah.
all, um, where can our listeners find more information about what you do and the workshops that you teach and kind of these different topics we've discussed today?
Well, KristanSwan.com. I have a website, so that's always a good place to start. I have one of the things that's on the website is a journal that's called Spaghetti on the Wall, and that is a gently prompted journal to help you kind of do some of this self-discovery, and it's a great tool no matter where you are in your journey, at the beginning, middle, wherever. And so that's a great place. I also do some writing that is it I don't know that it has a particular theme other than it is what is in my head and heart, and that's on Substack, and that's Kristan Swan as well.
Nice. I love spaghetti on the wall. That's a cool term. I like that.
It
And it's Kristen with an A.
Yes,
I
yes.
mean, not, I mean, it starts with a K, obviously. Tan, Kristen. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Victoria.
you.
Yeah. Any extra stuff that you wanted to bring up today? What do you think?
Um, Nothing specific. I think today was a very fun episode.
Yeah, me too. I like these organic conversations that kind of just become that permission that you talked about at the beginning, where we just have permission to sit and have a conversation, see where it goes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the it always comes back to the intended purpose, which is we're here to help people. We're here to recognize our own things that we're going through and see how we can help ourselves. And we're here to learn from people at the same time. And so, raising awareness is such an important part of what we all are doing. So we're very grateful that you took this time with us today. Um, I really hope to start going and seeing some of this workshop stuff that you're doing in small groups because I always think to myself, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool! I'm gonna go do that." But I'm a big fan of kind of a lot of the things that you said today, which is like holding an in-person thing with a small group, and you got to kind of shift. It's like a bowling alley. You put the bumpers up and the ball will go wherever it goes, but then you're just there to kind of guide it. And then you have to shift every now and then or pivot to see where's the group at. And so I'm going to dive into some of that stuff and see where you're doing this because I'm interested.
Well, good. Well, it would be lovely to have you. And Victoria, thank you so much. You are just such a wise, truly a wise person. And so don't forget, you have so much wisdom right there within you. We all do, right? So
Right. I
thank
agree.
you. Yeah,
I agree 100%. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today, and we will be checking in soon.
sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.